The conspiracy theory has been picked up. An opinion poll 2 years after 7/7 found that around a quarter of British Muslims questioned thought the government or MI5 were involved in the 7/7 bombings. This is the Central Mosque in Birmingham. We were invited to film at Friday prayers. On the agenda, 7/7.
How many people in this mosque, please raise hand, who do not accept the government version of 7th of July?
The mosque chairman, Dr. Mohammed Nassim, is a leading figure in the community.
I was doubtful from the very beginning of the story that as the story emerged, I thought it was too fast, too quick. Unless somebody else has already prepared it.
He questions how the men blamed for the attacks were identified. A few days after 7/7, the police said they'd found vital evidence in the wreckage.
We have since found personal documents bearing the names of 3 of those 4 men, close to the seats of 3 of the explosions.
But if the men blew themselves up, how did these documents survive?
When the body blows up, now everything is destroyed. The body is turned into pieces. How come these whole documents were remain intact? Now this is something that I cannot understand.
For Dr. Nassim, it's too similar to a suspicious find after the 9/11 attacks, in the wreckage of the Twin Towers.
If you go back to 9/11, the aeroplane and that blew up, everything, the metal melted, but the passport was found intact.
Although the hijacker perished, along with everybody else on board, his passport survived. A few days after 7/7, a driver's license in the name of the bomber was found in the wreckage of the bus.
The one who boarded the bus blew up, but his all identification papers were lying safe. Now it seems to me is one organization is writing all these stories because they're very similar.
There is an explanation for the mystery. According to court testimony, forensics suggest it's likely the driver's license wasn't on the bomber's body when the bomb went off. Like other documents recovered from the wreckage naming the bombers, the license was relatively undamaged. The pattern suggests the bombers dropped them nearby to ensure they would be identified. A driver's license in the name of the bomber was found in the wreckage of the bus.
They claim to have found Hasib Hussein's ID in Tavistock Square. However, they also claim that ID from another of the four, Mohammed Siddiqui Khan, was found in at least 2, some reports say 3, separate blast locations. He cannot possibly have been in 2 or all 3 locations at the same time, proving that these items were planted after the blasts. How could their IDs have survived suicide bomb blasts?
There are others who doubt the official account. Bristol, one Saturday in July last year. Around 60 people have come to a meeting arranged by the local branch of Britain's self-styled Truth Movement.
What we really need is an army of citizen bloodhounds that will not just accept the initial story. And I think that's...
For many here, suspicion 7/7 could have been an inside job has been fueled by doubts about the 9/11 attacks.
We have condemned 4 guys who admittedly are presumably dead without evidence being tested in a court of law. And that is a breach of the principle of innocent until proven guilty, and it's outrageous.
And I think it's very important that we question whether what is supposed to have happened really did happen, because it's been used as an excuse to erode the civil liberties of everybody.
Do you think it's possible that the 4 men didn't do it?
I think it's possible, yes.
From an underground office nearby, Tony Gosling runs an internet forum popular with 7/7 skeptics. A journalist who once worked for the BBC, Tony has been looking into the attacks for 4 years.
You have to go into these things with an open mind. I think it's really important that all journalists investigating these things do question the official story that's immediately rolled out.
Tony's research is raising the unthinkable.
It's possible that 7/7 is being used in order to persuade the British people to get behind the war on terror. And it's also, I think, entirely possible that these 4 guys are totally innocent.
A number of people now question whether these 4 men really carried out the attacks on 7/7. But is there any real evidence to back up their belief? 6 hours after the attacks on 7/7, the Metropolitan Police gave a news conference here in London. Brian Paddock, then a senior Metropolitan Police officer, ran it. Still, none of the bombers had been formally identified.
The auditorium was filled with journalists, and they all had many questions, most of which we didn't know the answers to.
Above all, who was responsible?
As far as I'm concerned, Islamic and terrorism are 2 words that do not go together. However, we are treating this as a terrorist incident. We are keeping an open mind as to who the perpetrators might be.
I was always very mindful of the fact that we didn't know for sure, and I didn't think it would help in terms of community relations, for example, to speculate about so-called misnamed Islamic terrorism.
8 hours after the bombs went off, the Prime Minister addressed the nation.
This has been a most terrible and tragic atrocity. We know that these people act in the name of Islam.
On the basis of the evidence that I was given, Tony Blair's statement went beyond the facts. At a stage where you've got the police saying we're not sure who's done it, and a politician saying we think that these people are acting in the name of Islam, it's not going to go down very well with the Muslim community. They are clearly going to think that they are being prejudged, that they're being accused, even in the absence of at that stage, any evidence.
To 7/7 ripple effect, Tony Blair's statement is evidence he was part of a conspiracy to blame Muslims for the attacks.
Tony Blair said on the day of the explosions that we know this was done in the name of Islam, when there was no proof whatsoever of who had done it, therefore indicating he possibly had foreknowledge of the plan and who they intended to blame, and the reason why they were going to blame the Muslims.
We know that these people act in the name of Islam.
But was Tony Blair's instant certainty evidence of a huge conspiracy, or was there another explanation?